All right, joining us now from Moscow, or just outside of Moscow, is former Prime Minister of Russia, Mikhail Kasyanov. Hello, sir.
Hello, hello. Happy to see you.
Good to see you. I hear that you, in the running of your political party, have just received a notice from the Russian government, which says what?
That our state registration of political party has been frozen for 3 months period, exactly the period what is we call parliamentary elections.
So what does that mean? They have essentially either arrested or attempted to assassinate, forcibly closed offices of any political organization in Russia. And you've obviously been given a warning: cease all political activity before the parliamentary elections or else.
Yeah, exactly the case. In our Congress party Congress in March, we discussed this in length, and we called for opposition just to be united. And unfortunately, after that, as you just mentioned, some people were put in jail, some people just go outside or exile, and some people just under home arrest, etc., etc., etc. And we finally got a notice from the government that our state registration has been frozen. It means we have no right to participate in elections. That is, I would say, the KGB strategy to eliminate any risk, even minimal risk.
What are they worried about? Putin says he's so popular, and they say that they are still going to win the Duma elections, even if there are opposition parties. I mean, what are they so worried about?
There is no logic to explain that. That's simply the, I would say, instructions on mentality. If there is any risk, that should be eliminated if it doesn't create any real danger.
They locked up Alexei Navalny, who you know well.
Right.
They've outlawed his political party as being extremist. I mean, as putting it on parallels with Al-Qaeda or ISIS. This is unheard of. Putin's been in power 21 years. I mean, he's never allowed a real opposition to breathe and to really emerge. But this takes it to a very different level, doesn't it? What's happening there?
Yeah, I think just they simply afraid of any I would say activity, because just the economic situation is worsening every year, every month, and inflation this year started to grow rapidly, and of course they feel that general audience population just angry on authorities, and even when before they asking questions just and couldn't find the answers. Now just the people can't find the answer. Authority, Putin in particular, are responsible for all the problems. We're pumping a lot of oil. We pump a lot of natural gas, a lot of revenue. The international reserves very huge. Budgetary reserves are huge. But people, the level of poor people just growing considerably. It's more than 20 million people already under the level of normal life.
Who is running things in Russia?
Yeah,
because, I mean, there have been political advisors around Putin, and there have been security advisors and the security services around Putin, known as the Soloviki. I apologize for my pronunciation. Has there been a shift now inside the Kremlin, do you think, where the KGB, the FSB is really running the show?
I wouldn't say they're running the show, but I definitely can confirm that during the last few years, the influence of, as you correctly mentioned, Siloviki is growing. And as we have just discussed with you, that even minimum risk for participating in elections was eliminated. That is the policy or feature of the policy of KGB. So that no risk, should be no risk, even a minimum risk, it should be eliminated. It's confirming this feeling. I am sure that my feeling is right, and not only mine, that Siloviki having a growing influence on President Putin, and decision-making process, the inner circle is narrowed down, and just everything goes in this direction. Just pressing, just eliminate all freedoms, eliminate any risk.
Mikhail Kasyanov, Russia was supposed to be a democracy. It emerged from the Soviet Union with a constitution. Do you believe now that Putin can simply change the constitution, extending his term till 2036, arrest, threaten, possibly murder political opposition figures, and that will be accepted by Russians? Or is this a fuse that has been lit? Because a lot of Russians now do not recognize Putin as a legitimate authority now.
Yes, right now we cannot call just Russia any kind of democratic state. There is no single feature of democracy right now. That is simply authoritarian state and people living around, and just the state. They didn't elect this state. This is system of running, and just Mr. Putin, as you correctly mentioned, with his inner circle, just grabbed the power for a long period of time. I'd like to believe not forever, and of course, it is surprising development, not only for me but for many people. It's surprising that Russian people keep patience. For so many years, we had demonstrations in the streets. We wanted and we demanded from this authority just to respect our constitutional rights. And in return, people got pressure, jail, just beating people on the streets, and people in jail for many years, etc. And people continued to keep patience. That is the question, rhetorical question. How long people would keep this patience? And how long just this authority will go through this path? Of course, it depends not only on negative development inside country, I mean economic and social development, which is, I would say, continue to creating pressure, and not only emotional pressure, but real income problems for people. People cannot keep the same level of their life, and they absolutely envy. But it also developed. It also depends on international attitude to this regime, and I believe just upcoming meeting with President Biden in Geneva, of course, will also demonstrate just, I would say, the readiness of the whole West, readiness to stay on their values. It means not coming to the agreement on human rights violations and allowing Mr. Putin to continue this policy, but saying just very clear no for these repressions and for these violations of human rights. But of course, there could be some issues for, I wouldn't say cooperation, but some kind for interaction and resolving international problems. That is a separate issue.
Right. This is the so-called multilateral issues where they'll talk about humanitarian assistance in Syria or global warming. Biden says that he wants a stable, predictable relationship with Russia. Do you think that that's wishful thinking given President Putin's intentions?
It means it depends what we mean predictable. If predictable in terms of international security, of course it is possible. In terms of strategic balance and keeping non-proliferation regime and secure that's absolutely necessary. But other issues like regional conflicts, of course, it's difficult to come to a solution. You mentioned Syria. I don't think it's possible to come to the solution there. Syrian President Assad, together with Mr. Putin and Iran, devastated the country, devastated Syria, and now just humanitarian assistance, only humanitarian, but it's not rebuilding just of the country. That's absolutely serious question. Other regional conflicts, that's also a problem. Ukraine, the most sensitive issue. I don't think it's possible to find a compromise there. There could be, of course, there could be talks, there could be some kind of exchange of arguments, but I don't think there would be a solution, because for Mr. Putin, it's necessary to keep his face. But of course, difficult to imagine for me that the West, I mean, unilateral West would compromise somehow on the Ukrainian sovereignty or territorial integrity.
Is Putin using Ukraine as a pressure point with America?
Ukraine, that's important point. It's an important point for the whole West and Europe in particular. It's a testing point whether the West is prepared to stay on the values, on the principles which they do and then announce in every country, and respecting those principles. All those leaders got elected. If they will stop respecting those principles, and they will never be elected again. And this is a completely clear issue. The democratic system in each of those countries, that is prevailing theme.
But a test of what, though? I mean, Ukraine is not a member of NATO. It's just it's a test in terms of the respecting post-Soviet borders and boundaries.
Ukraine wants to be a member of European Union. Ukraine wants to be a member of NATO, and Ukraine wants to keep the territorial integrity, which was recognized after the Second World War and after collapse of Soviet Union. That is one goes for another. Just that is absolutely clear. Just, and the whole world would like this. Not new. I would say changes of borders, not new cutting this. This is absolutely clear. That is the whole European security based on that. This is OSCE charter, just the main basis for European security.
But you know that Putin accuses the West of lighting a fire in Ukraine, and he blames the West for any unrest in Ukraine, and he pretends to be a moderator, a mediator with the areas of eastern Ukraine like Donetsk. What is the reality?
That is why I'm answering your question, that I cannot believe there would be a compromise found during that meeting or just follow-up meetings, because just as I said, that is completely different positions of Mr. Putin and the whole world. And I think just the problem of Eastern Ukraine, or problem of annexation of Crimea, was not recognized for any single, I won't say two single countries in the world. Even Belarus didn't recognize annexation of Crimea. That means just that is the very I would say fragile position on that.
As we speak, President Biden is sitting around a table with NATO countries. And as you know, a lot of those NATO countries they include the Baltics, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia, and their leaders see Putin as a major threat, even Poland, believing that he is expansionist, that he wants to create turmoil on his borders, just not in Ukraine, just not in his relationship with Belarus and President Lukashenko. But in the end, he aims to upset any stability within NATO countries as well. Do you think that they overstate the dangers?
No, they have the reason. They have reasons to be afraid of that. And that's absolutely clear that Baltic states, they were not long ago, just part of totalitarian Soviet Union. They understand Putin's mentality and Putin's inner circle mentality of that. That's why they have reasons for that. And they understand, and that is not only for them, it's clear that Ukraine, that is the sensitive point. If West would come to some kind of compromise of Ukrainian sovereignty and territorial integrity, of course, that will be multiplied. Reasons will be multiplied for creating dangers for Baltic states in particular. That's why leaders of those countries I would say continue to insist of strong position on that. I can easily understand leaders of those Baltic states and Poland, including Poland. That's absolutely clear just what they're afraid of.